Today's guest is Blake Hutchison, the CEO of Flippa. Flippa is one of the leading global marketplaces for buying and selling online businesses, digital assets, SaaS, content sites, e-commerce brands, and more. Under Blake's leadership since 2018, Flippa has scaled its reach and tools to be a market leader in the space. One of the big innovations, though, at Flippa is its AI-powered buyer matching and recommendation engine. We're going to learn more about that. Plus, Blake will tell us about how Flippa is applying AI in marketplace brokering, what that means for both buyers and sellers, and how AI is reshaping digital business transactions around the world. Blake, welcome to ROI from AI.
Thanks, Brad. Good to see you, mate.
Yeah, likewise. I want to start with your expertise in this space. You've been at Flippa for quite a while now. How has online business acquisitions evolved since you took over Flippa 7 years ago?
Yeah, well, it's evolved quite a lot in the sense that, we're obviously seeing more buyers around the world who are interested in online businesses as an asset class. And so what we mean by that is that they're seeing it as a logical place to invest their money. And we're also seeing a great deal of interest in this kind of what we might define or describe as, I guess, a bit of an ownership revolution where people are so interested in becoming entrepreneurs and therefore business owners. And so we've seen more people enter the space. The second big change is the types of things we've seen people build out there and then ultimately exit with the platform. And so that's expanded from things like you've already alluded to, e-commerce businesses and SaaS assets, but also through to things which are like YouTube channels, as well as even Chrome extensions, Slack plugins, and more recently, such as the nature of this particular podcast, AI native apps and AI native businesses. And then I suppose you've gone from a marketplace which is full of friction. Selling a business is hard and buying a business is hard. And so adding AI into the mix can help with some of the workflows. So I guess there's a few changes there.
Yeah, and I'm sure over the past 7 years, you've lived it, I've lived it. There's been a lot of global change, COVID in particular. I love the idea of taking ownership for your own income and your business assets. What are some of these key trends that you've seen over the past 7 years that Flippa has either had to work with, work against, or adapt to? What have you seen that's really influenced the whole marketplace?
It just changes so often. That's the most surprising thing to me. Over the last few years, we've obviously seen online publishers take a bit of a hit, and that's as a result of content being so easy to come by, the rise of communities in their own right, and as a result of that, blogs and the relevance of blogs have not disappeared, but in some cases diminished. And then, of course, with AI content, there was some fear that the blogs that you had trusted and been so used to going to and consulting were no longer producing subject matter expertise or had subject matter expertise. It was more AI generated. And as a result of that, Google applied a couple of major updates to their algorithm, and that substantially impacted traffic. So one of the big trends was the decline in, generally speaking, traffic acquisition through SEO to blogs. One of the more current trends, Brad, which has been really interesting, is there's a little bit of fear about SaaS businesses and whether those businesses which have been so defensible in the past are now as defensible, given how easy it might be to replicate those businesses and how easy it might be to scale those businesses with the assistance of vibe coding, as well as some of the tooling you have around sales and marketing. So as a result of that, it's incredible. People are coming back towards e-commerce in a flurry. Now, of course, high interest rate environment, high inflationary environment, e-commerce was a little bit on the nose, but it's come back really hard because people are so fearful, or it's somewhat of an unknown as to how AI will impact these traditional tech industries, if that's even a phrase. And so the tangible product that is e-commerce now feel safe again. And so we've seen a lot of buyers go back to e-commerce as an asset class. So just crazy levels of change, and it's happening so quickly.
Oh, and I could imagine the agility that Flippa would need as a marketplace to not only just have a finger on the pulse, but then successfully adapt to all these changes. And you did mention AI there. And one thing I'd love to dig deeper into is Flippa's AI recommendation and buyer matching engine. How does this work briefly, or the techie side of it? But what are these data points that this tool is using to match buyers with sellers?
So where AI can be really powerful is when you have a proprietary data set. So that's a data set that is your own. And Flipper's uniquely benefited by that. And so we have a proprietary data set on the buy side, and we have a proprietary data set on the sell side. On the buy side, it's the mandates, it's the bios. So a bio is how I describe myself to the marketplace, and a mandate is what I want to buy. In addition to that, we have all of the search data. So if any given buyer will have a look at a suite of assets and they'll engage with those assets. That happens across literally millions of buyers that sit within our database. And then, of course, you've got all of the conversation engine, which is playing out. That's where I say, hi, Brad, I like the look of your asset, but why did it decline last September? And so through all of that, there's a bunch of sentiment data. And you combine the mandates, the bios, the locations, the budgets, the search data we just alluded to, and then the negotiation and conversation information we just alluded to. And you've got this crazy level proprietary data set, which is just so rich. On the sell side, you have all of the businesses. You have all the SaaS businesses, you have all the e-commerce businesses. You break down e-commerce by Shopify and Stripe, and there's some, or Shopify and Amazon, and there's some uniqueness there. You have the online publishing businesses, and blogs, YouTube channels, etc. You have iOS and Android apps. So these two proprietary data sets can inform a lot. So to answer your question really, really succinctly, the matching engine basically looks at all of that data and makes and infers interest. It says these buyers are like these other buyers, and these other buyers are like these other buyers. And then it says one cohort of buyers looked at this cohort of assets. So if that cohort is similar to this cohort, we can infer that they would be interested too. So it creates those clusters. And once it's created those clusters, Flipper obviously does its usual marketing around SMS marketing and email marketing. And we basically then communicate to those buying cohorts that we found relevant assets that we think they'll be interested in. And the accuracy is phenomenal. So that's been something we've been investing in since February 2023, and it's proven to be very, very successful for the company.
Yeah, I can imagine that there's quite a traditional community when it comes to business brokering, having worked in the space myself. And when you couple that with this emerging tech, AI having evolved so quickly, so rapidly, there is that reticence to this sort of technology. So I would love to know, how has the community responded to your AI tools? And is there some extra communication needed to get the more traditional minded people across the line to use this tech?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, as it relates to the matching tool, because it's accurate, people really like it. And so we found that unlike traditional email marketing, we have just a extraordinarily low unsubscribe rate and an extraordinarily high engagement rate. And so that's really the measure, at least the initial measure. And then the the primary objective is more happy entrepreneurs having successfully exited their company, and more prospective buyers successfully landing on a company. And our deal volumes are up 36% while global M&A has declined. And so that for me is, I guess, the indication that, while I agree that there's reticence sometimes to AI, so long as you're adding a great deal of value to the user base, they'll typically orientate well to it. Where we're going in the future, we're going to have to add um, a lot more narrative around how you can benefit from it and how it's all been derived. So you and I were talking just before we jumped on air about agentic and how you can use agents to do certain things on behalf of a customer. And I think to answer your question, that is where you'll have to put a great deal of caution and and prior use warning around how the technology is being used and how they can get the most out of it.
Yeah, something like AI, it's not just emerging from a technology standpoint, it's also humanity that's emerging alongside with it. And we're learning how to use AI in our everyday life. I think people are starting to see AI as less of a dirty word and more of something that can actually make them more human. That's something that I really believe deep down. If it gives us more capacity to be productive or be creative, then these are all pluses in my mind. And I look to companies like Flippa that have a finger on the pulse, and I'm sure this biomatching engine is just phase one for a lot of this emerging AI tech as part of Flippa. So, is there anything in the pipeline you can reveal? Anything happening? Any emerging technology you can tell us about?
Yeah, so what we do is we try to understand where buyers are facing friction, where sellers are not having success, and try to fill that up with emerging tech and AI. And so the big reveal here is a product called Lauren AI, and Lauren will basically find deals for you. And so, of course, at any given time, you've got thousands of assets for sale on Flipper, but each each and any given asset can only be bought once. And so that means there's lots of buyers who miss out, but they've clearly shown interest. And so the whole idea is, what if you could take all of the buyers who had demonstrated interest in any given asset and provide them with a tool to reach out to all the other relevant assets out there in the world that looked similar? And so what Lauren AI does is it says, hey, Brad, we understand your mandate. We understand your budget. We understand your bio. We understand that you're looking for an asset. Here is a fantastic list of highly specific, perfectly matched businesses. You can now peruse and then ultimately outreach to these businesses. So, in other words, we're bringing the off market on market, and we're enabling buyers to find deals that they otherwise wouldn't have access to. And we can do that because we know the best assets on Flipper. We know how many buyers missed out. We can then match all of those buyers that missed out to other relevant assets and put them directly in touch.
Yeah, it's super impressive. I can see how the exit journey is shifting alongside AI also. And these are two areas that I think are very exciting. You've got a buyer matching engine, but then also someone doing the heavy lifting. They're actually going out, it's interactive, they're taking it on board with Lauren. Are there other parts of the business exit journey where you can see AI really being quite useful?
Yeah. So you're trying to create efficiencies and you're trying to make it easier for those people who have never bought or sold a business before to buy and sell. And so if you think about the areas, the whole journey from first inquiry to ultimately transacting, there's a lot in that and it's complex and it's also time consuming. So one area, for instance, we think AI can help with is deal structuring. So if you're looking at, for argument's sake, $1 million asset and you've never bought anything before, but you have the capital or you're being financed by someone else to acquire, you need to understand um, the types of deal structures that would make sense to be able to get that deal done. So is it seller financing? Is it an earnout? Is there some kind of retention and stability payment? Is it an all cash deal? And and what are the terms around which those deals get done? And so we're building a negotiation assistant, and that negotiation assistant will basically be there. You'll trigger that assistant. It will obviously with your permission look through the paper trail of all of the communication, and it will recommend to you the type of deal you should do. So it might say something like, "Hey, Brad, I've recognized that you're talking about this business. I've recognized that you're talking about a $1 million deal. Why don't you try $800,000 in cash and 20% in seller financing? The current seller financing structure that might work is 7% interest paid monthly over 24 months. Um, Here's how I would structure that. Here's a proposed email for you. Would you like it? Would you like to make any tweaks? And then you can just grab that from the assistant, drop it into the chat room, and ultimately you've now started a negotiation. And that level of insight and knowledge we have through doing tens of thousands of deals on the platform and watching that play out. But the average buyer doesn't have that level of nous or subject matter expertise at their disposal, and we can now provide it. And AI is just going to be so brilliant for that particular use case and others like that.
Yeah, it reminds me of a conversation I had recently with a lawyer who was using AI for due diligence and was summarizing pages and pages and pages of content, especially with deal structuring or selling assets. It's democratizing business, which is an ethos of Flippa and something that I think you should all be very proud of. But this intersection of AI and business brokering, as someone that's got their finger on the pulse, how do you see the next 5 to 10 years developing, and how do you think this integration between business and tech will continue to flourish?
Yeah, so I think what will happen in a lot of these industries is where you've got heavy load on humans that is creating either friction, it's slowing down process, or it's reserved for the 1%. It's highly um, it's a skill set, and it's dependent on having years of subject matter expertise. I think to use your term, Brad, all that becomes highly democratized,
Mm.
and I think that that's really the most significant change here. And I think, therefore, you put a lot of power in the hands of a lot more people. And your Flipper's always said, well, we're providing exit and ownership opportunities for the 99%. And that's visionary, and we're excited by that vision, but it's proven to be hard. And ultimately we think that the AI evolution will give us just so many more advantages that most people, actually, including our competitors, we don't think will be able to replicate. But more important than that, it puts power back in the hands of so many people. So you've got the proprietary transaction data, which we can now make available to people. It's dynamic, so it's always updated, it's always on. And I think that maybe the key piece here is that it's operational infrastructure. So you're removing human friction and creating pure value. And if you can remove human friction and create pure value, the customer base, the user base, the Flipper network of entrepreneurs will just be so much better off, and that's better for everyone.
It's an exciting space, Blake, and all the work that you're doing, I think, is really innovative and what competitors, basically. Flipper, it's the number one. And yeah, I'm so proud to be a former worker at Flipper, and I think the work that you're doing is incredible. But I'd love to finish on a question that I ask every single guest, which is, Blake Hutchison, what is your biggest tip for a return on investment using AI?
Yeah, so I would write down the biggest problems within any given business. So what are the things that plague you today? Is it customer acquisition? Is it responding to customer support tickets? Is it being able to answer more phone calls? Is it being able to send more emails? Is it being able to advertise more efficiently? So write down the single biggest problems, and then go and hunt out the best providers of AI for that particular use case. And there's a lot of people niching down into particular industries. Run a standard procurement process, get them to demo it to you, get them to do a lot of the heavy lifting. And I think you'll find that if you can effectively prioritize the problems that plague growth in your business, then there's an AI use case for that. And that's where you get your ROI fastest.
Yeah, love it. Excellent advice. Soon there'll be podcast hosts doing my job for me that are all artificial intelligence, so I can sit back and relax. But Blake, thank you so much for joining me on ROI from AI today.
Thank you, Brad.